What is going on, everybody, and welcome on in. Happy Sunday. Let me get over to what we want to talk about first, sort of dive into what's going on, some of the top stocks to watch this week. Actually, actually added a sixth specifically related to the hurricane that's going on. Talk about that. Of course, the unfortunate situation that's happening there. So my plan this week is if I do make money on across any hurricane-related stocks, I'm going to be donating some of that to the relief efforts, which is at least my current plan going forward. I talked about I had some of those hurricane-related stocks already grabbed. I grabbed some of those last week, some generator plays, power plays, other type of plays along those lines that have run in the past. So that's what we're going to be talking about for sure first. And then, of course, after that, I want to dive on into some more stocks because the theme right now, it seems like, is high short float, short squeezable stocks. And so we got some of the stocks to watch, and we're going to be diving through, I think, a pretty good list of what we have on that front. So, for example, BBIG, we'll talk about that. Those are two that I think will be pretty good runners tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens. The only thing I will caution, though, is that a lot of hype that tends to not live up to expectations. So you want to be early if you're someone who's looking to chase BBIG or any or some of those crazy short squeezers in the morning. Be careful because BBIG, for example, is getting a lot of attention. I'm seeing 10, 20, I'm seeing crazy targets being put out because of the past runners. When the momentum dies, that's coming down hard. Just be careful, be ready for that. So you don't want to see anybody chasing that thing up over $10 unless you're in it for, a day trade and you're, willing to manage your risk and you know what you're doing, right? So right now we're looking at SPY overall, right? Crazy extension as we've been seeing, but that's what we're doing. That's what we're dealing with. That's the market right now. And so at some point, this is going to start to slow down and the pullbacks. And the problem is that everyone's anticipating a pullback. When everyone's anticipating a pullback, it's just going to keep on going. And the Fed's been helping as well, right? So it looks like end of October is last I saw. They're going to start easing, right? Or at least that's the plan. So that could be the time frame for a pullback into the the run up or the pre. I guess September is also really just historically and statistically a red month, or at least a weaker month across the board. So it's something to watch out for in the coming weeks. Maybe you have a hedge of maybe like a VXX or a UVXY hedge in your back pocket. Something that I probably will do if we do see continuous extensions to the upside here on SPY, well over 450. I'll probably go ahead and grab a UVXY hedge. Let's pull this bad boy up. And that's what I did last time we got up to this level. And UVXY, if we look at what it did, if I zoom on in, sorry about that. If I zoom on in, it didn't go crazy. It popped a little bit and then it pulled back. This was it right here. It popped from like 25 up to 29 and then it pulled back on down. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about for that front would be getting UVXY, either grabbing some calls for like, let's say, mid-October. Go about a month, go about 1 to 2 months out on those calls. Maybe I grabbed like $20 calls, something like that for that period. The thing pops 25 to 30, take profits. And maybe if you see a bigger run in it, maybe leave one contract on or, a portion of your contracts on for a bigger run, but take your profits pretty quick on that. Because, don't really want to fight the market. It's been super strong. At some point that's going to change. But, those who've been looking to fight that are also going to be, they're the ones that are also getting kind of screwed and kind of exhausted out on trying to find the top, right? Exhausting yourself out and finding the top, then you're the one that's going to miss the actual move to the downside on SPY, right, when it happens, right? Because you've been trying, you're going to give up. And when you give up, that's when it happens, right? So that is that. Let's dive on into these stocks. I want to dive into these stocks first, these related to hurricane plays, because that's the biggest news. We do want to talk about that. And then after that, let me pull this up really quick. After that, we can dive into some other the short squeeze candidates. So here we go. Current storm information right now. The thing is, just made landfall earlier today, and it's still holding itself together, which is pretty scary, to be honest. But it's just been a massive, it's going to cause massive destruction. It's already doing that, right? Actually, for those who are not familiar, stronger than Katrina wind-wise, at least wind speed-wise upon landfall. This, I don't believe, got officially Category 5 strength. It got very close. But Katrina was a Category 5 and then actually kind of pulled back, I believe, to a Category 3 or a 2 even when it actually hit land. So many people think that Katrina was a 5 when it hit. It was not. It was a 5 at one point over the water, but then before it hit land, it actually weakened a little bit. This was the opposite, where it strengthened literally up into the last approach before hitting land and coming ashore in Louisiana, which is just terrible for anyone who has been dealing with this, right? So, like I said, for those who, for this example, right, my plan is if I do make, PPSI, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about POLA, and then a couple other ones as well. If I do make a lot of money on that, I'm planning on donating a good chunk or at least a portion to relief efforts. Even though I'm not going to take money out of the account because that's kind of how I do it, I'll donate, money on the side as well if I do make money on that. So I don't want to be just profiting off of others' misfortune, which is kind of a shame. And you hate to see that, right? So, but that said, there's opportunities, and then eventually on the backside, right, there'll be shorting opportunities for a lot of these stocks if they do go crazy when things do kind of calm down and potentially, get better. And we'll see. Hopefully it's not as bad, but it does not look good. So across that front, PPSI is the first one we talked about last week. Generator company, boom. This is one that I'm looking for to move up to $5 plus. Over 5, this thing has some range to 6 and even higher. Last hurricane season, this thing went up to 9 from 150. So that's the type of range we're looking at there on PPSI. POLA, I'll just touch on these quickly, and then we'll dive into some new ones. Same exact idea here. Last hurricane season, it went up and it popped a good bit, and then it kind of had a much bigger run into the beginning of this year. I'm looking for a similar idea. It's kind of a sympathy play to PPSI. And then ELSE also ran hard during hurricane season, the exact same day PPSI ran, went up to 880. Holding this trend support here down towards about $4.75 to $5. I think it's going to make a bigger move on Monday. Of course, maybe it won't, but these are the stocks at least I'm looking at there. Then across the next 3 that I want to look at, let's dive into some of these HD, Home Depot. So I want to look at some of these kind of, I guess, home related plays, like building plays, construction plays for rebuilding, right? And so Home Depot, Lowe's will be the two we'll watch. So Home Depot, we're looking for a move here on Home Depot up to 330, over 330. So let's draw these lines in really quick so we have them. 330 was our resistance back in here. Over 330 on Home Depot, I think we have a really good shot up towards that 338, towards 340. And then above that level, we can draw those lines. Above that, we have the highs right here up towards 345 that we hit back up at the end or the beginning of May. So those are the areas to watch on Home Depot's. Be my targets to the upside on Home Depot. If this does, many times these types of situations get factored ahead of time leading up to the event. The problem was this storm hit or it kind of rapidly strengthened so fast, and really it was barely a category 1 on Friday at the market close. So it didn't really have a full week to factor it in. Maybe there was some factoring in on Friday across some of these stocks, but I think that it really didn't have a lot of time to factor in. So Monday could be the pop day, and then it could fade back off if these stocks do go crazy. Or, if things are a lot worse, this could be the start of a bigger run on some of these names. Lowe's, same. I like this chart a lot better, to be honest. Lowe's, LOW, sorry. So we got some good support here down towards 203. So I think it's a very easy risk reward play. I would be playing this one, even options. I'd probably just play shares personally and just go heavier with shares. But if you wanted to play options, you could. I would be risking down to 203 as my, falls under that level, I'm out. But I'm looking for targets here to 210. And then after 210, I think 215 is not out of the question on Lowe's. So let's draw those lines in right there. Let's draw that trigger point up around that 210. And then over that level, we're looking for a move to 215 and then potentially higher on Lowe's. So that's what I'm looking at there. And the next one, we also have Gnrc. There's more where this came from, but Gnrc, generators, right? This is one that actually had a really nice past couple of weeks, really nice move. But I think this catalyst right here, the storm, could be the catalyst that sends Gnrc up to new highs, and we break out of this area right here. We hit up to double topped roughly at this 450. Yeah, we hit 457. So 450 will be a key level of resistance. Over that level, 457. And after that, right, we're into price discovery. We're into hitting new highs. And at that point, psychological levels every $5, $10, whole numbers will be key. And we'll have to watch momentum at that point. But that's another one that's making a move. Easily can make a nice breakout. So these are all stocks that are within reach, right? Home Depot, Lowe's, Gnrc, all within reach of hitting all-time highs. And I wouldn't be surprised if early this week, these hit their all-time highs with a crazy move on Monday, potentially. We'll see. Because I think we'll see tomorrow morning, as this starts to dissipate and as things start to ideally, people start getting back or at least can start to pick up the pieces and see the damage, it's not going to be good. So we'll have to see how these plays. Again, for those who are tuning in, again, the plan here for me is if I do make money on these plays, I'm going to be donating to the relief efforts, which is my plan. So not taking money out of the account, probably not, because I want to keep growing the account, but I'll donate some of my money on the side. So that's the plan. And so those are the, 6 hurricane plays that are front of my head here. Now I want to dive into some other plays as well, and then I'll dive into questions in a second. So don't be afraid to leave comments and throw out your ideas as well. That's very much appreciated. So BBIG, biggest, kind of play, very high short float. If we actually dive back over here, let us dive back to, where is this? This guy right here. BBIG is the number one shorted stock on FinViz. 50+% of the float is short, right? Thing went crazy. But if you look in the after hours, what did it do in the after hours on Friday? It continued to push. Here's the problem. I'm seeing a lot of attention on this one. $10, $20, crazy targets. I am 100% on board. This is probably going to go to $10. But everybody, and it's seemingly right, everybody is so excited to wake up and to see their profits on BBIG or to take a position if they aren't already in. I think that, there could be an opportunity here for a pretty big backside. So yeah, if it gets attention, it goes and you get more behind it, for example, potentially the Reddit crowd and whatnot, then yeah, it could go. But this is also something that I'd be very, very, skeptical in terms of the backside coming quick. And when the backside comes, it's going to come pretty fast. If you look at what happened on SPRT, very similar situation here. This thing was squeezing all week, pretty much, even past couple of days. It started to slowly grind up, never kind of pulled back too hard, never let the shorts out of the trade. And then boom, the thing went nuts. The shorts are out though now because they had the opportunity. This thing went up to over, 55, but then in that period when it hit 55, it came back down and fell under 30, literally in just a couple of hours, in like an hour and a half in the afternoon. So you have to be careful of this type of thing happening for BBIG. I would not be surprised. What you want to see for BBIG for it to continue the move is it to continue to pull back and get bought up. Pull back, get bought up. If we see crazy pullbacks, or we see, massive, 50% pullback, well, maybe not that big, but a 25% pullback to something like that intraday, that's the opportunity where shorts are able to get out of the trade, right? To reposition, to trim their positions, or if they averaged up into the highs, they can kind of take something off the table, deleverage, and then come back with a hammer and hammer it again as it starts to push back on up, and they can kind of win control. And that's what it looks like on SPRT is happening. We'll see what happens tomorrow, but it looks like the shorts have now regained control of this stock. And so it's kind of a battle, right? So BBIG bullish until something along those lines happens, and I would just make sure you're ready for that, because again, when everyone's on one side of the trade, make sure you're looking the other way. It could still go to $20 before that happens, right? What do I know? But just be careful of that, because personally for me, I like to be getting into my place early and not have to deal with all that stuff. I've done it too many times, and I've even recently done it with AHG, for example. Crowded trade, I got in, I played into too much of the hype. I thought it had more room to go. And then I didn't get out soon enough. The next thing I know, I was down, mass on the trade. I didn't need to be, right? That was just my mistake. So I just don't want that to happen to somebody who's, getting all into the euphoria right now of all these, crazy short squeezes and thinking this stock, BBIG is going to go to 100. It could, but let's be realistic here. When everyone's looking that way, usually it doesn't end up happening unless you have an outlier AMC or GameStop event where there's just too much attention. NE is another one, ANY. Same idea here, pushing up to quite well, actually, at the end of the day. And then this push up into the after hours, if I recall. A little bit, not really. It was up a little bit in the after hours, then it pulled back at the end. So it's another one to watch as well. Looking for this one up over the highs here, up towards 565, over that level, then up towards that 658 that we hit up back on the 9th of August. That's what we're watching there. So let me see. Good evening from DC. Very concerned with my Pfizer calls. Yes, those don't. That Pfizer looks like it is, was a great example of a sell the news. It had a really big run. PFE had a really big run in anticipation of that FDA full, clearance news. And now it's coming down. It looks like it wants to come down towards that 46. So we'll see how it handles at 45, 46. But it seems like that kind of move has, at least in the short term, ended. Let's see if it bounces here. If it bounces at this level, we'll have to watch. If it doesn't, it can come down more. But again, we did have a really big move on Pfizer, in this period up over, 30% roughly in the past about a month and a half. So you have to make sure you take into account, right? That was kind of the pre-anticipatory FDA run, and then backside is now coming. So that's what we're seeing across the board. I think there'll be some vaccine stocks to watch as well. For example, mRNA. This thing needs to get up over this 415. It didn't do that, and it actually had a kind of a nasty trend shifting candle on Friday We had a pretty nice trend where it was putting in higher lows, and it started to pull back out of that trend. So that's something to watch on mRNA. It needs to get up over 415. Outside of that, it has some support here down towards 350 and then down towards 340 if that's where it ends up this week. Okay. CEI should have a nice week. Yes. This is one that I've been watching, or at least it's always been on my watch list, and it's had a really good finish to last week. My thought on CEI here is I'm looking for a pullback or of some sort, and then I would be getting in. At this point, it had just too many green days in a row for me to want to just jump right on in, at least as of right now. So I'm waiting for a pullback on CEI. I want to also look at futures as they are looking right now. Let's take a peek at what we're looking at for futures across the board. We are looking roughly just barely green. So yeah, there's futures right there. We have barely up across the board, VIX barely down. So nothing too much to note, although they also did open like 10 minutes ago, right? So futures, we don't have too much of a direction. We'll see how that happens overnight. Things can change pretty rapidly, and we'll check on that before we lock out or we end the stream here. So let me get back for whatever reason. We got to get force quit Weeble for a second and come back. But before we do that, I do want to also point out this right here. So BBIG was one of the stocks that were the highest shorted, right, in terms of FinViz short percentage. Let's dive through some more of these. SPRT, I think the run is potentially over. Shorts have caught in control, I think, of that stock. It could change, but I think shorts have control. AGC, highly shorted stock. BEEM, highly shorted. But look at this. Workhorse is a very highly shorted stock. It's gotten very quiet down here, just under $10. 38% short. We've seen Workhorse make runs in the past. I would not be surprised if Workhorse makes a move up towards that 15 area. Would not be surprised, as it's, if the theme of these heavily shorted stocks continues to catch on. So we'll have to watch how Monday opens up, but that's one to watch. Let's see, best BGFV. But beyond this, Blink, BLNK, $30 support, looks pretty good to me. If you look at this guy, good support here down towards $30. So Blink is setting up for a possible squeeze event where this thing makes a move to 40 plus in the coming sessions. I would not be surprised there. I would have it on the list for sure. And then keep going down. SDC, Smile Direct Club, has a gap to fill. This is an interesting stock as well. I think it has a nice gap here. If it gets up over 575, it's got a nice little move up here towards that 675. So a nice dollar move there on SDC, Smile Direct. Heavily shorted as well, and it got some good volume on Friday, so I wouldn't be surprised if that continues. And then if you keep going down the list here, there's more where that came from, but then there's Ride, Lordstown Motors. This had a nice little squeezer or a nice little pop on Thursday, pulled back. This thing comes back down towards the sub 6. I think it's a good idea for an entry potentially. And then FUV. I like FUV a lot. I want to pull this one up on the Weeble chart really quick. So reason why is there's a nice gap on this chart for FUV. Let's pull it up. Let's go back to our chart only, and then let's pull up FUV. Arcimoto. This is an interesting stock because look at this. I have a couple levels here, but there's a gap right here on this chart. So if we do zoom in, we got a little rectangle box in here. What do we got? This is our spot to watch on FUV. Looks like up over 1250, you're in the gap, and then that gap extends up towards about 1350. So doesn't sound like a big gap, right? A big move, but playing an option or playing shares from that point, that's still an 8% move, and I'll be looking for that gap fill on FUV with a stop loss in, at least if I'm taking this stock right now, you're kind of buying it or I guess you're kind of preloading in a sense before the gap. You could buy it here with a stop loss, let's say below 1125. So you're going to risk 50 cents of downside with targets up here towards 1350. So that's a pretty good risk reward in my eyes here. You're looking for roughly a $2 upside for a 50 cent downside. Pretty good risk reward if you ask me. I like that idea on FUV. So that is that. Good Sunday evening. Let's see. Yeah, everything is doing, we're doing good here, but I mean, a lot of people across the board, at least in and around Louisiana, are just, ideally not doing ideal right this evening. So we'll have to see what happens as we start getting more images and pictures. But right now it's still a massively powerful storm. So there's not really too much that we're getting in terms of damage reports. We're just seeing the crazy storm footage, live meteorologists and stuff that are, trying to brave out the storm, which is insane. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. I think we'll get a better picture tomorrow as things start to die down, hopefully. But it's slowing down, a lot of rain too, a lot of flooding as well. That will be, something that they're dealing with as well. Um, combine my background with meteorology and trading. Yeah, I mean, to a degree, that's kind of what I've been. My favorite stuff is when the weather kind of plays a role into the trade into a trade to some degree. Not to mention, I do want to also mention we have some Oilers. I believe that the track of the storm went across some pretty big oil rigs. So I'm curious if they'll be down, if we have some damage there. That's going to be a whole other story in and of itself. So let's dive into some oil plays. I'm curious. I'm actually haven't been paying attention to some of these lately, but look at this HUSA. It looks like this thing under 2 is, for me, it's always been a pretty good buy under 2, selling into any of the spikes. This could be a nice popper up over 2, HUSA. We have GBR is one that likes to run as well. GBR is setting up for a potential massive run. We have CEI we talked about. It's ties to the oil sector as well, although they have some additional stuff going on there. We have to look at, let's see, HUSA, GBR. I can pull up my list, actually, because it's probably easier to do that. Let us do that. Where is the oil stuff? ENSV. We have ENSV. We have USEG. That's a go on. USEG. Let's pull this one up. USEG. Pull this on the chart. This thing is looking good. It got some support here down towards 340. We're sitting right here. Look at the spikes on USEG. This is one that likes to go. If we get any indication of an oil pop or any indication of oil rigs and whatnot being affected, and we get some perk in oil or oil prices, or oil's popping on up tomorrow morning, these are where I'd be watching. USCG, and then we have as well AXAS is another one to watch. This one likes to make some pretty big runs when Oilers do make moves. This is a pretty kind of interesting how it pulled back. I'd like to know the story there behind AXAS. But that's what I'm be watching there across the board for the oil plays, because let's pull these up again. They're going to be ones people are going to be looking for. RCON is another one that can have a pretty good run. And then GBR we talked about as well. So yeah, that's what I'd be looking at across the board on those stocks. So they're ones to watch. Let's see. And NDM is an interesting one. This one, let's take a look where it's trading at right now. $6. It's roughly at a good spot support-wise. We can even draw. I got a lot of lines here. We can even draw one more right in here down towards 525. Not that, I think this is a pretty good support down towards this area. So my anticipation with some of these stocks as well is it's very similar charts, right? Growth, high growth, penny stocks, same thing, right? You go back to this time last year, bottomed out, stuff made a crazy run into the fall and into, the beginning of the 2021, right? And then massive pullback. I think people are getting very excited. We got some pretty big runners, very hot. Maybe the next month heats up, followed by a little drawdown, and then we kind of heat back up into the end of the year. That's my anticipation. That's my thought process for a lot of these stocks. So a stock like NNDM could be one that may end up being may end up trading up over $10 in a couple of months, and could be a really good stock to start picking up on these recent dips. Right? We have that kind of feeling right now that a lot of the small caps, what's been getting hit pretty hard the past couple of months, it seems like we're getting a good feel for this is coming back. Things are heating back up. The interest is coming back a little bit, and back to school, kind of, I guess, back to work in a sense, right? I guess people are starting to get back to somewhat of a sense of reality. But my favorite plays are the ones that have high cash, right? You're looking at a decent, trading, at least where they're trading at right now, market cap wise, is roughly around their cash position in terms of small caps. Those are money. Those are my favorite ones to be watching. So there is that. Let's see. SPRT, still have room to run. Here's my thing is that this thing I think is in control. The shorts are in control because we had this move on Friday up here to $60 and then a pretty big pullback. So any shorts that were able to average up over $40, you can bet that they took some leverage off. They got out of that position to some degree, took something off the table, and now they are ready to go with more ammo to hammer this thing down tomorrow. I think we can see $20 pretty quickly on this one. So personally, I would not be a big fan. Although if it starts to hold up and it doesn't die, it holds up. The longer it holds up and it won't kind of fade off and end and kind of really pull back substantially, the more you have to watch for that next leg of the squeeze. So that's what I'd be watching there. And the same exact thing with BBIG. Exact same thing here. If we do see a really hard pullback, a really hard drawdown that's substantial, think about it this way. Any shorts that were screwed because they've been shorting, averaging up, they know it's going to come down at some point. Well, they're going to either get margin called on the way up, or if they aren't getting margin called, they may be able to take off some of that addition to their position. If they're smarter on how they do this, they're able to take something off as it pulls back. Let's say BBIG goes to $10, right? They wake up tomorrow morning, they're in with whatever amount short. They add to their short at $10, right? They bring their average up a little bit in terms of their shorting, their current average on the short, but the thing pulls back from 10 to 7 in an hour. You can probably bet they're going to take those adds, the additions they had at 10, they're going to sell, or they're going to buy those back, cover some at 7, right? Deleverage some of their position, and then if it starts to push back on up, be able to hammer it again and gain control. That's kind of the battle that you're seeing when it comes to these short squeeze stocks. And I'm going to have a detailed video on the TC trading channel. So link will be down below for that one. I'm going to be posting there like once a week, more educational kind of tutorial style stuff. I'm going to have a whole video diving into the short squeeze and how that stuff happens. And I'm going to explain the whole shorts are screwed. They haven't been able to get let out of a trade, why that can continue happening, how you can notice that and go long and take advantage of the long side, but also how to notice once it happens and not get caught up in buying something that's, up so much that's never going to come back, right? That's never going to make those new highs. You're a little bit late to the party. How we can identify when you're late and when you're early. And that's ideally what we're going to talk about in that video. So subscribe to that channel if you're not already subscribed. TC Trading posts like once a week there. Keep it pretty much educational based. That's the idea. Not that we don't talk about some of that stuff here, but it's more so kind of what's going on, what I'm doing, lessons and stuff like that I'm kind of seeing every day, right? So that's that. Let's dive a little bit deeper into some more questions. Took our profits from SPRT over 50. Yeah, the thing about, I had SPRT, I played a lottery position with some options as well on Friday. So it was more of like, okay, this thing goes to $100 and I make, a ton on that lottery play, relatively speaking, or it hits my stop I lost a few hundred on it. And so that was it. If it really went nuts, then I would have made, great. It would have been fine, but it was kind of a lottery play after having a decent week, so I couldn't really complain. But Mkty, any other top clean energy blockchain mining crypto stocks? Let's take a look. We talked about any a little bit. Let's see, Mkty. Let's see what we got here. This had a really nice day. This is extending on up for sure, right? So over $10 seems to be the next area to watch. And then we have this little line right here, resistance here at 1050 or 1060. After that, looks like we get up into this, $11 to $12 area for sure. So I would not be surprised if we see those. Those are the next key levels to watch, I would say. And after that, 13, 14, 15, and then the highs up here towards 18. Every whole dollar looks like it's pretty, realistic in terms of, or reasonable to go from there if we do see it moves over that 12. Lock in some profits on BBIG. Yeah, that's great. I mean, for those who had BBIG, locking in is great. The only thing is that I think that what's going to happen here is if we wake up tomorrow morning, everyone, the euphoria, the hype, right? This thing opens up at 4 a.m., which, by the way, if you don't have a broker that allows you to trade at 4 a.m., Weeble's link down below or in the pinned comments or whatever. Check it out, or get one that does. I don't care if you use my link. If you don't use my link, if you get a broker that, I don't care. Please just get one that allows you to trade during full extended hours, so that you can set you can set some sells and wake up. For example, BBIG could be one that you wake up at 4 a.m. The thing hits 10, then it pulls back to back to 8, right? And so you could be taking advantage of a bigger chunk of profits potentially at that first kind of bit, that first kind of like, oh my gosh, everyone's trying to get in. And I think we're going to see that tomorrow morning on BBIG. But the opposite effect could happen as well. Everyone gets in, over leverages themselves long. Next thing you know, it starts to fade back off and never comes back. Shorts take advantage, and you kind of get the panic sellers. And I wouldn't be surprised, right, on some pretty big pullbacks. So this will be a battle for sure next week, tomorrow specifically. So it'll be one fun to watch. Personally, for me, if I'm not in, I'm not really interested. I'm not interested at all, personally, if I'm not already in one of these plays. But I do have a list of other stocks, right? So BBIG is one that pushed up. Let's see. Neuro, kind of a sympathy play to SPRT, BBI, the short squeeze type play. It's made some crazy runs in the past. Neuro is one of those that's on my radar for a short at some point. I don't necessarily care to short it tomorrow, or if all these short squeeze stocks are going. I don't care. Let them do their thing, but there'll be opportunities. Looking at the Neuro chart, right, when it finally kind of had its end to its run from 3 to 38, right? I'm looking at this saying there was opportunity pretty much every day for weeks where you had opportunity intraday, right? there was intraday range of 20% there on the 23rd, right? We look at the next, let's even go into like what's happening as of late. Even a couple days ago, there was still intraday range of 10%, right? There's major range to the downside on some of these kind of pumps in a sense. So there'll be good backside plays as well for some, I guess, quiet fading out short plays. But I'm not interested in playing that now long side of stuff. I like to be getting in early. Neuro, look at this though. The 50 SMA bounce, we talk about this as a really good indicator or a really great trading strategy, right? 50 period simple moving average, or the 50 MA, same thing. This is generally a good area of support when a stock makes a crazy move and comes back down and it's like, okay, where is it going to find support? That 50 MA is usually a good spot, and that's exactly where it ended up kind of pulling up. So the 50 moving average bounce is back in some small caps. We'll see if we keep that up, but that's what I'm watching there. Just bought some MP. I like MP as a long-term play. How's MP doing? Let's take a look at the chart lately for this one. I like MP a lot as a long-term play. Actually, it's holding up along the 200 period moving average pretty well. Let's connect some of these bottoms right here, like roughly something along those lines is our kind of area. Looks like we're bouncing around from here. I would expect a bounce from the low 30s back up into the 40 range, and then we'll see how it goes. This is one that I would have no intention to sell anytime soon. I'd be looking to hold this one for a while. That's at least my take, so I like it. Ccxi, let's take a look. This is an interesting one as well because this thing had a crazy sell off. Right now we have some resistance points to put in. This has been a really good play. These bottomed out plays are really coming back to seemingly to kind of back into our wheelhouse of like, okay, we're getting back into like bottomed out, some of these bottomed out stocks that we can look at. Look at this up here towards that 17-18 is where I'd be targeting first. On that over 18, we got some potential range here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see up towards 20 and then 25 pretty quickly if we get up over 18. Plenty of range on that chart, even just for a small bounce and pull back. If you think about it, well, there's a lot more behind the scenes, right? But if you think about it, get rid of that. Get rid of these lines. Let's see. Okay. There's still, this thing recovers, not saying it recovers back up to where it was, but if it recovers like half of where it was, it's still 70% from where it is now. And it's still, if you think about where it is now from the bottom, right? It's like 70% up from the bottom. So tons of potential on some of these bottom net plays. I think we're getting into a pretty good time for some of them. It seems like this is picking back on up. So I'm excited about it, but we'll have to see. MRIN is another one as well to watch. This kind of got going. Resistance here up around that 750 area. But this is another one for me that I'm watching as a backside. If it gets quiet, no one's paying attention to this one. Yeah, I'll watch it for a backside, pullback. I think this is going to be a really good opportunity on like a stock like this. While everyone's focused on a BBIG and this and that and maybe the hurricane plays and whatever, so there's opportunity on even some of these for like, this thing gets back to where it was. This is, significantly overvalued. I think we can all agree on that based on their numbers, and their earnings report just doesn't look good, right? But this thing pulls back, 5-10%. There's a really good, high probability trade there, right? 5% trade potentially to the downside. There's some good opportunities on some of these quiet names that had their pops that are still going to be kind of, gravitating downwards in the coming weeks. I would imagine that this stock, I wouldn't be surprised this stock is back under $4 in the coming weeks and months. Maybe into a hot period, maybe it kind of gets a little bit, holds up a little bit. But again, this will be trading much lower unless they have some news where they get things together fundamentally, which, my bet, I probably would say no. They probably won't be able to do that based on their history. But, who knows? We'll see. MPs in the IRA, I like that. I like that idea. ENG. Let's pull it up. ENG is bouncing nicely off the bottom here. 175 support. We're up around 2. Would like to see, like, a lot of these stocks are going to have very similar charts. So what I want to see now, let's go to the 1 hour chart, is recently, right, it pushed up over 2, pulled back to 1. Like I want to see $2 hold on ENG. So you want to see it continue to make those kind of higher lows. But right here, $2, I would like to see that area holding on ENG, and then continue the move up from here. So that's good. So pullbacks to 2, pullbacks against 2 is a pretty good risk in my eyes. So that's kind of the idea. AGRI, some good farm play. Yeah, let's see. I'm curious. I wonder how this would play out. But this is one that has run in the past. So this is one that if it gets some more volume, it has support here down towards 225-ish, 218 lows. So you're not going to risk too much. I'd say up towards up 285, 275 to $3 isn't out of the question. We can draw a line there. Support in the past towards 285, which will be resistance as we push back up, if we push back up to that level. So risk reward on the chart here again, right from where it's at right now, you're going to risk about 8% to the lows, and the first target here will be about 20%. So it's a pretty good risk reward in my eyes, chart wise, which is it's nice. Sava's been crazy. Sava had this is one to watch for sure for a rebound play. I think we'll get it at some point, but I'm not going to really fight it right now. I think it was kind of an obvious rebound play. Some articles came out after some of the news last week, some of the negative news, right? Articles came out saying, we're reiterating our price target 200 plus, whatever that, and the thing went down. So it was kind of weird price action to see that after some of those, news pieces came out. So I'm curious to see how this thing holds up, but maybe $50 ends up being that support. So risking Sava down towards 50 with targets. I would say there's a first gap fill here towards 67, another gap fill up here all the way up towards 100 plus. So this thing could be back up over 100 in a couple weeks, like it's done in the past after big pullbacks. But we'll have to see. That might not happen again. It might take a little bit longer. And it could be the obvious after what it did last time. It could be the obvious recovery bounce play. Ends up not happening because it was obvious, right? Works has a high short interest as well. Let's see. Let's take a look at the chart on Works. It's one that's been a popper in the past. So it's like an obvious short, as they say, right? This thing pops up. Obviously, it's a short back down. This thing will come back down, blah, 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 whatever. And so it's come down, 50 SMA bounce back in here, back at the end of July. I'd love to see that. It's nice. And now 50 SMA here is at like 233, but because it's got a high short, this thing can be up over $3 in a second. Low float, right? Small market cap. This is one of those that can easily pop back up, fill this gap up here towards like 375 and make a run for sure. FTFT moving business China to the US and Europe might be a good mining play in quarter 4. Let's take a look at the chart there. FTFT. Yeah, I like this chart a lot, actually. I would like to dive a little bit deeper into what they got going on, but I know they are a crypto play, right? So 225 support. This is a good bottomed out play. I like that idea. And it has that prior history for sure. So if this thing can hold up in the 225 area, I mean, this thing could be up over 3, pretty quickly. So I like that. I like that play. TALOS. Let's take a look. Talos had a really nice move off the dump down from under 10, dumped down to sub 9, and then recovered in like, a week and a half, recovered back up to 12. That's kind of a very quick move up. I don't doubt it can keep going, but we're at the 50 SMA. Could be a resistance point right here at this 1270 area. One to watch up to 1275 really. So it made a really good bounce. If we zoom out, right, bigger picture here, right, there's more range on this chart for sure, but it has made a really big bounce pretty quickly, and it's had how many days in a row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green days in a row. The odds are at some point we see a pullback, and then that pullback maybe holds up around $11 or $10. That's the opportunity to kind of enter that pullback and ride it up personally, or look to add to a position if you already have a position. That's how I would play it. Let's take a look. AMC, yeah, I do want to talk about AMC because AMC, Ccxi, I'm saying that one's a high short as well. AMC is one that for sure is going to get attention this week. What I think is really funny to see, watch these types of stocks for moves early and then fades at the end of the week, or just kind of stalling, right? So AMC made a move early this week and then got topped out, couldn't break that 50, pulled back. AMC could, make a move Monday, Tuesday, and then stall. Why is that? Because when a lot of options or those weekly options expire, it's very easy for them to kind of, the manipulation that kind of goes on behind the scenes, right? Those options expire at the end of the week, so those moves happen early, and then it kind of just like sits. And sometimes what really pays nice is after a really big move up or down on a stock early in the week, is look to either sell some calls or puts and profit on that premium, on that decay of that premium after you sell the put or sell the call if the stock just ends up sitting still. That's a good strategy. I know people who do that, who do very, very well with that. one I'd be watching. But AMC right here, if it can hold up, let's say 30, upper 30s, it seems like that could be the spot that it was showing signs of resistance in the past. Upper 30s bounce back up to highs. I think it back up to recent highs, up over 45, up towards 50. That's what I'd be watching on AMC. Outside of that, though, if it does come down into the low 30s is where we got some good support on AMC. So we'll watch. I'd be watching for an early week move on a lot of these stocks, and then just a sit still or kind of a slow fade or a slow grind, or just kind of like a period of consolidation towards the end of the week. AMC, I think, was a perfect example, right? This is Friday. So on Tuesday, it pushed. Couldn't do much on Wednesday. It's pulled back slowly on Thursday. Held up a little bit on Friday. And I'd imagine if we're going to get the next leg, that comes early this week. So I'd be watching AMC for sure if it holds up here roughly around this 39 area into next week. I think that's a good play. I mean, it's got the momentum back, it seems like. Interest is back for these short squeeze stocks. And I don't think it's worth fighting if you're, looking to fight the short side after the past couple of months. It seems like people are ready and back for some more, right? They want to make some more money. Seems like. So we'll see if that continues, that attention and that momentum holds, right, across the board. Let's see. Mkty, bag holding, TRCH. It is. I believe it is. The only problem is that I'm curious when you bought. Actually, it's bottoming out. So we'll see. This thing got some attention on Friday. It's got resistance up here towards like $4.75 to $5. If it clears $5, this has some potential range in it, the chart, right, based off the crazy run it had. But that was also when it was TRCH. I'd be careful here. I don't know when you bought in, but I would be very careful. I think a lot of people got their average down. So there could be a lot of people in the same boat who averaged this thing down sub 5 past couple months. And the second this thing gets up to 5 or even above, they're getting out. They're cutting their losses. They're getting out with something, and they're moving on to the next one. So that's what holds back a lot of the stocks that have made crazy runs in the past couple of months. That's what holds them back, because you have those who bought in way too high, who then average down, who then get out immediately on pops. And they're the dip buyers become pop sellers, as they say. And when you see that, it's usually not great for momentum to the upside. So I like to look at, personally, I think it's a good idea for a lot. We can talk more about this in future videos too. I was planning on doing a video or maybe even a live at some point. Just some due diligence, like we'll just look for a bunch of small caps that no one's found, right? And I think that's the best way to go about it. Finding the plays that no one's found, doing a little bit of your own research ahead of time, it puts you in a much better position, because you're not coming in after a crazy run when there's already bag holders. You're coming into something that's fresh, that hasn't really made a run, and that could make a nice run in the future because of the due diligence you've done. They have a lot of cash, low risk for offering. They have a pipeline, or they have a lot of catalysts upcoming. Those are the best plays just across the board. They are the best plays, because when they run, they get that news, or they have a catalyst, or when they start getting pumped on social media, they're new. There's something new. It's the next shiny object. Somebody says, I missed this play. I missed BBIG. I missed, TRCH. I'm going to go get this next one. And it's a lot easier to kind of see those stocks move, because there's no bag holders. There's nothing really holding it back. It's the pure pump or the news, whatever's driving it initially. And if it's a pump, I love selling into the pump. If I notice it's a social media pump, I'm selling into that pump. I don't care. If it's news, I'm selling into that news if it's making a big run, or I'm holding some for a bigger move if it's starting to hold up and it's trending to the upside and it's looking really strong. So that's at least how I go about it. Let's see. Diving into NFTs. I know a lot of people have been doing really well this past couple weeks on some of these NFT drops. Let's see. Double the same amount in my crypto account in 2 hours. That's awesome. Tripled. That's awesome. H2FV looking good as well. Let's take a look. H2FV is kind of an NFT NFT play. They have ties to DLPN, I believe. This is actually, we're getting to a really nice spot on. I would be ready for HOFV, because H2FV, $3 support. If we go back here, look at this 1 hour chart, pushed up here to 334, pulled back to 3, held $3 and pushed. I would be playing this with a $3 support, looking for a bigger move. 4 to 5, I would say, would be my targets to the upside here on HOFV. 4 to 5, I think is reasonable. NFL season coming up. NFT play, NFT angle. I think you have a good idea here. So roughly holding 3. If it can't hold 3, get out. Maybe 1 or 2 days closing below 3. wipe your hands, move on, or some negative news or something like that that fundamentally changes the idea. But Hoffy has some potential, I think, for sure. Let's take a look at how Bitcoin is doing really quick right now as we speak. Just curious, it's kind of getting stuffed here at that 50-ish, but it's still putting in higher lows. The chart is setting up nicely. A much bigger breakout over 50, I think, is in the cards. This thing pushes over 50, and you have a run. I think we can have a shot to these highs, and we'll see what happens until the end of the year. But I think a slower move would be great, and then a nice move up towards that 60 plus would be awesome on Bitcoin. So I'm ready for it. We're at 49 right now. So watch that. BTBT, not a huge fan right now until Bitcoin makes a run, although it is a short squeeze possible candidate here, right? Because there's a lot of shorts in it. Looks like we got some, only problem is that it just ran pretty hard. It pulled back a good bit. Shorts will be ready to come in and control this one as it gets attention. So the problem you're going to have here is you're going to have a lot of ideas, a lot of short squeeze candidates, a lot of these stocks. If you are focused on one or two, great. But when you start spreading yourself too thin, and it goes the exact same way for the mindset behind a lot of things. You start spreading yourself too thin, there's opportunity to get screwed many, many times if you're not early. So for me, as someone who doesn't need to necessarily, if I'm not early on these names, I don't care. There's a great backside trade waiting as well. For me, I'm looking at some of these stocks that get squeezed a little bit, that were prior runners, that have run in the past pretty hard, but pop a little bit, pop a good bit, but aren't the main focus, not the main volume. The volume starts fading off. We get a little bit of a confirmation of backside. And then boom, I'm looking to take advantage of the backside of some of these plays as well. The less they're known, the less attention plays, because they will all pop up, but 90% are going to pull back just as fast. And then there's a few that'll have more room to go. And those few are where you want to make sure you're focusing if you're looking to play alongside. But I'm not really too much. If I'm not already in early, I don't really care. Let them do what they want to do. Let it go crazy. There'll be opportunity, better risk reward, right? Better, higher probability trades on the backside for some of those lesser known, lesser volume, right? Less paid attention to plays, I think. 500,000 people left without power in Louisiana. I think that number is only going to go up at this point, right? And not just Louisiana. We're looking at a lot of other, the surrounding states as well as this thing pushes up to the north too. So it's not looking good by any means. And if you guys missed the beginning, go back to the beginning. We talked about 6 hurricane-related stocks. I'll be watching for tomorrow for sure. Arcom we talked about as well. Bottomed out play. Oil plays we mentioned a bunch of those as well towards the beginning, so those will be on watch as well. What do you think of wait for the break of EMA and SMA on a stock and buy on confirmation? So what I look for is if I'm looking for a breakout play, pull back. So if there's a key level that we are looking for a breakout on a stock, I can look at, let's say, like a FUV rings a bell because it was a nice play where it has a setup. FUV has a gap right here. Let's get rid of this really quick. FUV has a gap right here over this 1250. So I want to see FUV get over 1250, right? Let's say it breaks up, hits like 1275, pulls back down towards 1250. If it holds that level, boom, that's where I get in. I get in there and then look for the target to the top of the gap fill up towards 11 or 1350 in this case. So break through an area of resistance, break through, pull back, enter, and then go. You could enter on the breakout. Some people like to do that. I'm personally not a great breakout trader. You could do that and then have some cash to average in if it does pull back, because sometimes they just break out and go, which is possible, right? So it's never perfect. Ideally you'd like to see break out, pull back, hold it, and then go. That's beautiful. That's a great setup. Hopefully that's what happens. That's what you get, but it's not guaranteed that happens every time, right? So that's the idea. I'm going to wrap things up here. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. If you missed the beginning, we go back to the beginning. We talked about a lot of those hurricane stocks. I do want to finish up with futures. What are they looking at? They're green. More substantially, at least, than what we looked at last. So small caps looking pretty green. But everything else less than 0.25%. So nothing too substantial here. Could easily lose all these gains come morning. So we'll watch into the morning hours what happens for the futures. And what we see after that, currently the storm, though, is not looking great. Obviously, we have been seeing it starting to weaken. The eye is, shrinking down. It's not as divine anymore, but still a massive just monster that's not going to be good. So those hurricane stocks that I mentioned before, my plan, if I do make good money on those plays, my plan is to donate a portion of the profits to the relief efforts because it would be a shame to profit off the misfortune of a lot of people and then just, take that money and go do something stupid. Not that I would, not that I'm anyone who would do that, but money in my account, I'll let my account compound, and then I'll probably just donate some of my other, donate money aside as well. That's at least my plan. I'd encourage you to do the same. If you do make a lot of money this week, if you make some money on some short squeeze plays, if you made money last week, donate some to that, because there are people that are going to be needing that a lot more than you, right? Ideally. So if you can, great. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thanks so much for watching the stream. Good luck this week. This will be up on the channel, so you can go back and watch it, hit that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing if you're new. Also, 2 other channels, TC Trading, and we have Stock Trends. Links will be down below. TC Trading, we're posting 1 educational video per week. That's the plan. So we're going to do a whole short squeeze video diving deeper into when shorts are screwed, when the squeeze continues, how shorts get out, right? When to know to be early on the squeeze, or when to know when that squeeze is still occurring, and how to, profit on the long side, and also when to realize that so you don't miss out, or so you don't end up screwing yourself and getting bagged on the long side, or take advantage of the backside. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. TC Trading will be that video this week. If you missed last video, we talked about some good stuff on that channel, so I'd encourage you to check out the recent videos there. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Stay green.